Sisters Paxton and Barnes were out on their mission, riding bicycles through a raging storm, soaked and determined, traced by a thick black cloud that seemed like God's own way of reminding them why they were there. But the world wasn't particularly kind to them that day. A group of girls crossed their path and bullied Sister Paxton, leaving her in tears. Sister Barnes, never one to let softness go unchecked, pulled her aside. "You need to toughen up," crying, "doesn't move life forward." They finally arrived at their destination, Mr. Reed's house. He called them inside, but Barnes held her ground and said there was a rule in their church. They don't enter a home unless a woman is present. Mr. Reed smiled and told them his wife was in the kitchen, making blueberry pies. They could even smell it drifting from inside the house. Reassured, they stepped in, handed Mr. Reed their wet coats, and sat down. Mr. Reed began asking them questions about their faith, their beliefs, and their church. Did they believe in God? In Joseph Smith's words, in life after death? They answered sincerely and openly. Sister Paxton even shared something deeply personal. "When I die, I want to sit on the fingers of my loved ones like a butterfly, so they know I'm still with them." It was a beautiful thing to say, and it stayed in the air long after she said it. Then Mr. Reed got up and walked deeper into the house, inviting them to follow if they wanted to meet his wife. As they stepped further in, the darkness thickened, and when Paxton reached out and touched the candle nearby, she realized it was blueberry scented. There was no wife, no pie, just a carefully placed candle and a man who had planned every detail of this moment. The sisters tried to call their church immediately, but Mr. Reed calmly explained that the walls of his house were made of metal, which meant no signal could get in and no sound could get out. The weight of those words settled over them like the storm outside. They were trapped, and they were beginning to understand it. With no choice left, they moved through the house carefully. Then they both see the shadow of a horrifying silhouette at the far end of a hallway. They inched toward it, hearts pounding, passed by it, and tried the door beyond. It opened to another room entirely. Reed reappeared, watching them calmly. Sister Barnes reached into her coat pocket. No keys, the bicycle keys that had been in Barnes's coat, the coat they had handed to Reed when they came in. Sister Barnes suggested they confront him directly rather than panic. They followed Reed to a room that was built to look exactly like a church. Lined walls, dim light, the feeling of a space designed to put you on your knees. They told him plainly that they needed to leave and asked him to let them go. Reed replied without a flicker of concern, "I haven't imprisoned you. The main door has a timer lock on it. It opens in the morning. You're free to use either of the back doors until then." Barnes dared to open one of the back doors Reed had mentioned, and it led straight down to the basement. She shut it. Paxton opened the second back door, also the basement, both going nowhere useful. Reed smiled faintly and warned them to be careful wherever they went, as if he were a concerned host rather than the man holding them hostage. In a cutscene, we see their father at home, pacing, restless, unable to shake the feeling that something was wrong. The sisters hadn't come back. Back in Reed's house, the man put on some music and let it fill the silence, utterly unbothered. He laid 3 holy books on the table, representing 3 major religions, alongside a modified Monopoly board that he used as an analogy. The rules of the game were the same, he explained, only the names had changed. He argued that all religions worked the same way, same structure, same promises, same control, and that their church was no different from any of the others. He showed them religious rituals through a projector and continued his lecture with the patience of a man who had done this before. The sisters whispered to each other in confusion and growing fear, trying to find some crack in his logic or some opening to argue back. Through it all, Barnes quietly noticed something on the table. She picked it up without drawing attention and tucked it away. A small, sharp thing to hold on to when everything else felt like it was slipping. Reed pressed on with his comparisons, pulling book after book from different religions and laying them side by side. He was eloquent, well-read, and relentless. He argued that the more you study religion, the more you realize how little separates one from another. He told them to go through the door of belief to see if God showed them the right path. Sister Barnes picked up a book that had fallen to the floor. Sister Paxton looked toward the exit, weighing her chances of slipping away, but there was nowhere to go. After arguing with Reed as long as they could, they accepted there was no other option. They walked through the door of belief and descended into the basement. Down in the basement, Barnes passed the letter opener to Paxton and told her to keep it close. If things got worse, she'd need to be ready to use it. Then, from the shadows, something moved. A figure wrapped in a shawl shuffled out of a dark corner, holding a lantern, carrying what looked like rotten food. It placed the food on the table and sat down. Barnes pressed her ear to the wall and could hear Reed upstairs playing music, calm, methodical, completely at ease. Paxton slipped back up the stairs and peered through a small hole in the footrest near the door and spotted a safety match. She couldn't reach it yet. She came back down. Reed's voice came through from somewhere above. She would eat what was in front of her, die, and then return to tell them what she had seen on the other side. It was a horrifying thing to witness, but the sisters stayed. Meanwhile, the possessed corpse had already collapsed across the table. Paxton reached out to lift its face, needing to see, but it wasn't moving. Up in his room, Reed was working with a miniature model of his entire house. Small figurines, precise and deliberate. Back downstairs, the sisters worked together to pull the carpet aside and get to the safety match. Outside, the father had returned, knocking again, more urgent this time. Reed answered and denied everything. The sisters were shouting for help, had no idea how close rescue had just come and gone. The sisters heard the knocking and screamed, pounded on the walls, but the metal absorbed every sound. Their father stood just feet away, heard nothing, and walked away again. With the match finally in hand, the sisters lit a small fire in front of the corpse. The body jolted awake, lurching upright, coughing blood, horribly alive. Reed arrived almost immediately. Rather than rage, he delivered another lecture. He told them that what they had just witnessed was a miracle, that he had brought the dead back to life through his methods. He stood there, expecting them to be shaken into belief. Sister Barnes looked him straight in the eye and told him it wasn't a miracle, that it was a trick, that he had swapped the bodies while they were upstairs getting the match. The dead woman was replaced with a living one, and the resurrection was nothing more than a staged performance. Reed had wanted them to see the hand of something divine. What Barnes gave him back was the plain truth, and it infuriated him. What happened next moved fast. Reed, unraveling under Barnes's refusal to accept his miracle, grabbed a knife and slit her throat. Paxton began to run for her life. He turned back to Barnes's body and tore open her hand, pulling out what he claimed was a chip. Proof, he said, that she wasn't real, that she was a simulation, that none of this was what it seemed. Paxton, shaking but still thinking clearly, told him he was wrong. What he had pulled out wasn't a chip. It was a birth control implant. Barnes was a real person, and he had just killed her. Even as she said it, she was turning his own logic against him, refusing to let his narrative take hold. Reed caught up with her and tried a different tactic. He told her to cut open her own hand, to see her own chip, to prove to herself that she was a simulation just like Barnes. Paxton refused. Instead, she turned the conversation around and laid out the deception piece by piece. The prophet hadn't actually been raised from the dead. Reed had swapped the bodies while the sisters were upstairs retrieving the match. The woman who sat up and spoke was never the same woman who had eaten the pie. The more clearly she said it, the more Reed's composure cracked. She was taking away the one thing he needed, her belief in his miracle, and it was driving him toward madness. Paxton went deeper into the basement than she had gone before. Further in, past the familiar corners, she found a hidden room, filled with the markings and tools of Reed's rituals, the kind of place that explained a great deal about the man upstairs. She kept moving and found a door she hadn't seen before, with her own bicycle lock wrapped around the handle. She had the key in her pocket. the same key Reed had moved there on the very first night, thinking he was removing her means of escape. She opened the door and found women locked in cages, prisoners who had been there far longer than she had, proof that she and Barnes were never the first. Reed followed her into the basement. Paxton stood among the cages and faced him. She told him she'd understood his plan from the very beginning, from the moment he took their coats and quietly moved the keys, from the moment the blueberry candle gave away the lie about his wife. Every step had been choreographed before they ever walked through his door. She named each piece of it, calmly and clearly, until there was nothing left of his illusion. Reed, hearing his own architecture described back to him, was strangely satisfied. But Paxton wasn't done. She took out the letter opener that Barnes had slipped to her. She slit his throat and ran, sprinting upstairs, through the corridors, moving through the life-size version of the model Reed had built, now understanding that the house itself was his final trap. Paxton had seen the model. She knew how it was laid out. She found the window, the one exit Reed hadn't been able to lock, and crossed toward it. Just as she reached it, Reed appeared behind her, wounded, barely upright, but still moving. He raised his hand to strike her down, and then Sister Barnes appeared behind him, trembling. She could barely stand, but she picked up a piece of wood and drove it into the back of Reed's neck. He fell and did not get up. Barnes had come back, not because of a ritual or a staged performance or a managed illusion, but it was a really divine miracle nobody engineered this time. Paxton climbed out through the window into open air. Then a butterfly came and landed softly on her hand, and Paxton knew exactly what it was. Barnes had told her once that when she died, she wanted to come back as a butterfly, to sit on the fingers of the people she loved and let them know she was still there. It gives us a lesson that the strength of any belief is never measured when everything confirms it, but only when everything tries to take it apart. Has your faith ever been tested by someone who claimed to share it, and did that experience weaken you or root you deeper? Let us know in the comments, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss what's coming next.